afternoon. We welcome everyone here on behalf of the family of Blair, especially the Caroline and the boys. We've come together to comfort each other at a time of loss. And I just want to thank you guys for coming out, because at times of loss, there's nothing better than having people that can share and can comfort and encourage each other. So, although it is a sad occasion, I thank you for coming out, and let's encourage each other at this time. My name is Pastor Mike Collum. I have the privilege of pastoring the church here at Gold Coast Central, and we're honored to be able to hold this special memorial for Blair today. Our facilities are just out the door to the left if you need those. Also, would like to ask that you please turn your phones off or on silent so it does not interrupt the service as we go through the service today. I have a few people that have sent along apologies, and I just want to mention those people. I do apologize ahead of time for the pronunciation of the names. Luke Malik, Ruth Malik, Milicich. Okay, thank you. Feel free to correct, that's fine. Brian and Judy Suderman, Neil Schofield, Susie Schwartz, Adriana Adams, Edna Lim Reeves, and Rue Coho. I know there's many others that aren't here that would like to be here, and many of you have traveled great distances, so thank you for coming, and I hope that we're all blessed and encouraged by the blessed hope we all have in Jesus, because we're all family, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. So let's remember that as we share this time together. I'd like to invite Karen Prince up as she will lead us in the song. Thanks, Karen.
Actually,
there will be a time in the service coming up where everyone will have a chance to share just a short thought or memory of Blair. So just remember those thoughts, and we'll be bringing a mic around later in the program.
poem that she so beautifully wrote. A light that seemed to be invincible, perpetual. Who would have thought that it should go out so soon? Sometimes it flickered, but then it just started shining again, as it always had. It was a light unlike any other, unique, attention-grabbing, like a rocket being propelled against the force of gravity on a predetermined path, burning brightly until its fuel is spent. And thus, the light dies. How can we mourn the light's end and forget what was achieved? Why dwell on the spent fuel canisters as they plummet back to earth, or the light, once so bright, now gone? There is a legacy, a vision, a hope. These things remain for us to take up, to give ourselves to leave the world a better place for our being here.
We all have memories of Blair, and sometimes it's a last memory. They might revolve around eating out at a restaurant or doing things together with him, and their memories will cherish forever. I've got memories that probably go back a lot further, so I thought we'd share some of those with the history of Blair. And so Blair was born in Maribna, which no one's ever heard of, but it's 2 kilometres from Shepparton. And my first memories of Blair was sitting in the back of an FC Holden, and he was plonked alongside me, about 3 or 4 months old, and I stared at him. So as the older brother, you check out your new younger brother. He was dressed in a blue jumpsuit. I can still remember it very clearly. And I watched him, and he stared at the back of the vinyl seat, unblinking, face didn't move, and I looked at him and I thought, he doesn't do anything, he just looks fat. And of course Blair did go on to do great things, but at that stage, and I can still remember that memory quite vividly, as he doesn't do anything. And of course we shifted from Wangaratta, from Maribna to Wangaratta because it was nearer the snowfields. Dad was a keen skier back then, so Wangaratta in Victoria wasn't far to the snowfields. And I've got vivid memories of my sister down the front here, Merrill, pushing Blair around in a pedal car, and he wouldn't say anything again, but when we stopped he'd point, and we'd have to keep pushing. And so from Wangaratta, Mum and Dad became Adventists there, and so Dad decided to take up his life's work, which was building churches. So from there we shifted to Euroa, which is closer toward Melbourne, and by now Blair's older and he was becoming more useful, and so I've got the typical memories of that era. I'd started school by now, and of course when it rained you'd float sticks down the street and you'd roam the town, and back in those days you could roam around any small country city, and as long as you were home by tea time. And so from Euroa we shifted quite a lot actually, but from Euroa we shifted out to Nil on the edge of the little desert. And of course by now Blair is older and he started school. And I can remember, I think I would have been in 4th grade, and Blair wanted to hang around with me in the playground, and I still remember the day where the teacher came and said, "Boy, you get back in the smaller playground and you can't play with the bigger boys." And it's funny because I did that to my sister too. I used to hang around with her when I first went to school. So at Nil, as Blair got older, we had more adventures, and we used to go collecting beer bottles to save for 13 Sabbath. And back then, of course, you got 1 cent a dozen, and you had to collect hundreds to
get any money out of it. And I can remember we used to always give $2 to the 13 Sabbath offering, which we're talking back in 1964, 65, that was a lot of money. In fact, I remember at the next town, which was Colac, a student bought $2 to school, and they immediately rang his parents to see where he got the money from. So things have changed. So yes, we did ship to Colac, which is down on the Victorian coast, or inland from the coast, not far from Geelong. And of course Blair's getting older still, so by now we're building cubby huts in apple trees, and we're going downtown, we're making tunnels in the wood heap of the local pub, and all sorts of adventures that everyone has when they're growing up. And it's funny, I still remember all these quite distinctly. So for me, it was just a matter of sitting down and putting them all together. All good memories. So from Colac, we went across to Tasmania, which was Devonport. And of course, if you've been to Tassie, your memories change if you go there, because you remember the cold, windswept days, and playing, or anything you do is cold. You go to the beach, but you only do it one day a year because it's freezing. And but I've still got memories of Blair, doing things with Blair, playing in the creek together with model boats. And so of course we came back across Bass Strait. Back then the ferry was called the Princess of Tasmania. And I can remember the whole trip, and Blair didn't get seasick, but I did. To this day I'm not sure why. But when we all, because the Bass Strait crossing can be quite wild, when we all came up to breakfast next morning, we were nearly the only ones there. It was one of those crossings, but Blair didn't get seasick. So we've driven from Devonport to the next town where Dad built another church, which was Tumut up in the Snowy. And as we're driving along heading for Tumut, we knew something was different. And of course the wind doesn't blow on the mainland, so all the trees were still, and it was a typical Australian day. So at Tumut, I was in high school. Tumut also snows, and of course we had lots of fun. We lived over the road from a big park, and we wouldn't make snowballs and roll them down the length of the park. We would make like sponge cake rolls, long snowballs that as you roll them they got bigger and longer, and by the time you got to the bottom of the park it was one big green strip through 4 inches of snow. And we would go jogging of night, we would ride our bikes together, we would go down to the swimming pool and buy packets of twisties for 5 cents. And some of you can still remember those days. So from Tumut we shifted to Canberra, which was still nearly as cold at Canberra, and I've got memories there of Blair riding to school. You'd go over a frozen stormwater drain in the morning. When you came back at night it would still be frozen solid. And Canberra, of course your memories get stronger as your younger brother starts to do more with you, and I can remember, many of you don't remember, but we used to have bonfire nights. And if your cracker didn't go off when you threw it, you'd cut it in half and light it up and use it as a fizzer. But Blair had his face the wrong way and burnt his thumb badly. But of course, we had great fun. We used to get the big coloured thunders and drop them down the sewer main and watch the lid lift off. And of course, now you do that, they send a special team of police out from Brisbane. So, yes, they were called the good old days, weren't they? But from Canberra we shifted on to Lithgow. Dad had bought a new car by then. HG Holdens, they were brand new at $2,800. Times have changed. And at Lithgow I started an apprenticeship on $30 a week. And by now we're up to 1973, and of course 1973 is famous for the year metric came in. And the only reason I remember that is because I was the first TAFE college class to go metric. And back then, of course, potato scallops were 2 cents each. Who knew? And I can remember the first soft serve ice cream machine going in. and they were 10 cents each, and he wanted flavouring, and it was an extra 2 cents. And at that stage, Blair hadn't developed a sweet tooth. And it wasn't until he shifted from Lithgow to Broken Hill, where by now he's in high school, he's getting older, and he was the best newspaper salesman boy. So he stood on the main corner of a Sunday morning and sold newspapers to people as they stopped at the lights. And he used to do all the businesses. So he had a good source of income, and on the side, he used to knock around with Pro Heart Sun, and they used to collect push bikes. Lots of push bikes. They'd go knocking on doors and get them for nothing. And our back shed had 90 or so in it. And they would renovate them. You didn't know this, did you? They would renovate them and sell them. And so I was thinking about what his income must have been. But it was probably around the $2,500 mark, all of which he spent on icy poles. And every little corner store thought they had all his business, but of course the deli up the road too would sell him icy poles. And we used to call him the icy pole king. So from there we shifted to Mount Gambier in South Australia, and Dad built another church complex. And I taught Blair how to drive. Now this is no reflection on me, because many of you will know that Blair drove extremely fast. And I can remember meeting him once up at Laura in the Blue Mountains, and at that stage he had his white rotary Mazda, and we headed down the Blue Mountains to Sydney at an incredible speed. Now, when the sign said 40 k's, he wouldn't even back off. We'd be doing 140, and we lived. But that was Blair back then, and I'm sure he still drove at a rate of knots. And one of the reasons was he was very busy. Always had things on the go, and he had to be at 3 places at once, and it was very interesting. So from Mount Gambier, Blair shifted with his mum and dad out to Griffith, where Dad did another church, and from there he went on to Avondale. I stayed at Mount Gambier in South Australia, and then we shifted out to Broken Hill. I was a carpenter by now. Carpenters don't like rain, so where are you going to shift? You shift to Broken Hill, where it never rains. Yeah. And there's plenty of work. Yeah. So off he went to Avondale from Griffith, and of course he wasn't there very long when he was asked to leave. Now, when you get asked to leave any university, it doesn't come with a life ban, but with Blair it did. He played so many practical jokes that he was banned for life, which is interesting. So from there, he shifted to Cooranbong, and him and his mates did all sorts of things. He was working in an aluminium window factory. Again, very busy. He used to do the storeman shift during the day and work at night cutting out window frames. So we did a 16-hour day. Just this work ethic, I guess. And so we won't get on to what he did after hours back in those days. But funny enough, we weren't communicating that much then. You'd hear about each other through Mum and Dad. And out of Broken Hill, a minister came out called Ray Holt and started Bible studies with me. And coincidentally, Blair was having Bible studies with Pastor Lindsay Laws, who baptised him. So next thing we knew, we were both baptised, very close to each other. And I was surprised when I heard that this had happened to him, because I thought I was the one that was interested and he wasn't, but we both were. So, interesting. We used to go and visit Blair in Sydney. Many of you, or some of you, can remember when he rented a flat at Hornsby, which had Monday night Bible studies, and from there they planned street witnessing. And we used to pop in and see him now and then, and of course he was always ill. You might say, why? He was young and fit. But as a single young man in his own unit, he would go to the fridge and there'd be nothing there. so he would eat something from the fridge that was old. And I'm serious, every time we went to Sydney, he was suffering from food poisoning. Of course, his cure for food poisoning was eating watermelon, which he said flushed everything through. Whether it worked or not, I don't know. So, from those days when we used to pop up, he was always busy. They used to go street witnessing back then at Circular Quay, King's Cross. And of course, him and Chris Lill, and Chris is here today, they started up their own prophetic research or printing. And I think some of that started just so they could give out their own literature for Friday and Saturday night. And I remember them buying Steps to Christ off Signs of the Times. And I think they got 3 batches of 30,000 each and had given them out. And another church group approached Signs Publishing Company and said, we need Steps to Christ. And of course, Signs said, we don't have any, you'll have to see Blair and Chris. And of course, they had moved them on. But yes, I used to enjoy coming in to visit Blair because I was still out at Broken Hill, and of course Blair's life was a hive of activity, which, as you that know him know, that didn't stop. So he and Chris started printing at Gosford, and it was about the same time for me out at Broken Hill when the mines had a big crash. They were losing $11 million a month, and so they sacked anyone that wasn't a union member or had had sick days or was generally not doing much, and in one day they put 1,700 miners off. And so I was building a house for someone and they pulled up out the front and said, stop, we've just lost our job, we won't be able to finish. So we headed into Sydney. I think we sold our house for about half price, and we joined Chris and Blair printing. And of course Tony came along. He'd just fallen off his 750 Ninja from memory. His mum was shaking of heads. His mum, Ruth, had been staying with us at the time, I think. And again, a hive of activity. There were people coming and going. We had a little girl, Susanna, who was sitting up the back today with her husband, David. She was 6 months old. I think she slept in the passage because there were always people coming and going and staying the night. And it was where the action was, and it was very, very busy. So I had a different view than Blair on where we should be heading. We'd formed a trust at this stage. So I thought, well, I'm broke and I've never seen Queensland, so off I went. And of course, Blair and Colin Chand and let me see, I've got the names here, John Dixon and a few others kept printing on while I settled in Toowoomba, which I think must have been about 1988, 89 now. Anyway, I went back to Sydney for a visit and I popped in to see Blair at Prophetic Research, and who should be now there but a young lady called Karen Oliver. And of course, I'm pretty thick. I can't read signs, and I didn't realise that she was watching every move he made and obviously smitten, but I didn't see that. But yes, Blair, I think once Prophetic Research was disbanded, went off to America. I think for those that remember, Jim Arabito had just died. Yeah. And quite a few went over to America, or I know Blair did, to sort out a few issues. And of course, when he came back, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's when he picked up Epstein-Barr virus or chronic fatigue, and Carolyn helped nurse him. Was he staying in a little flat under a house or something? Yes?
He was in his own place.
So that was Carolyn and how she entered the picture. I still remember one particular meeting we had at Prophetic Research, and you were sitting up the other end of the table. Yeah, so Blair and Carolyn shifted to Mount Tamborine, and of course 2 incredible boys arrived. But we won't go there, but they're both great young fellas. And of course Murray moved in with them and became the #1 babysitter. How good is that? If you wanted to go out, you could leave the two boys with Maury, and you were free for a couple of hours. And we used to pop up and visit. In fact, I've got a particularly good memory of building Maury's first shed in 40-degree heat. And of course, Maury got to see our family interact, which he would still remember. Sparks fly. So as you know, since then, Blair's been very active. He's taught religious instruction. He's had a table down at South Bank of an afternoon and given out literature. He's probably, and this is why we're all here, he's probably helped more people than anyone else I know. And because he wanted to, because he was genuine. And if you wanted someone to help you shift or to go to court or give counselling, or you wanted to find out some information on a certain topic, that's where you went. And he tried to fit you in. And of course, living up in Toowoomba, where we do now, I didn't know how busy he was, but if I wanted something, you'd ring him up and you'd wonder why it took 3 weeks to get back to us, but eventually did. And only 3 or 4 weeks ago, he sent me some more information on magnesium and a few other subjects. So these are some of my memories and my sister's, and I know you've all got your good memories. And but yes, Blair worked tirelessly for others, and that's why we're here today. And I'm glad we've all got memories of Blair. In fact, speaking just outside, there's a lot of people that had seen him just recently, and it's just interesting to see how we all interacted with Blair. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
amazing life of Blair. I've only gotten to know Blair and Caroline over the last couple of years, but Blair, we didn't see much of him, but now I know why. He was so busy out sharing it at South Bank and various places, sharing his faith. But he also taught my son how to do his first changing the strings on a guitar. So I know my oldest son will always remember Blair for that. He's occasionally would give a children's story or something for us here at church, and did an amazing job. We're just going to have some sharing time. We're going to start out with Adrian Ebens and give him some time to share. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, John. Seeing some of those pictures, lots of memories. My first encounter with Blair was through the fact that, we'll just back up a little bit, that Laurel and Caroline lived together out towards Ipswich, and they were the Monkettes. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
And Blair took Caroline away from our group in Kingston. But we knew he was doing good work down there. And so, see some of those pictures in regard to the wedding day. Remember that up at Southport with Rolly? It was amazing. When I would talk with Blair, Blair had amongst many things, he had a giant intellect. His grasp of Adventism was just amazing. I loved talking with him. I loved asking him questions and just dialoguing about things. And I really respected his perspective on things. He talked to me about how when Robert Whelan came to town, and the way he expressed the gospel, it just really hit Blair in a big way. The good news is better than you think. And he loved Robert Whelan's material, and so do I, and many of us here do. We're very grateful to him and the transformation it's brought for many of us. Then it was only about 5 months later, after you guys were married, that Laurel and I were married. And it was just after I think we'd come to visit you up at Manitsky Street, and then Blair drops it on me. He says, I think I'm onto something really big, Adrian, really big. We got 6 hours of it, like a 6-hour Bible study about the Son of God. I just thought, this guy's crazy. It just really blew me away. So it took me 7 years to get over that discussion. But yeah, and the rest is history on that story. But I'm just really deeply thankful to Blair and to Caroline. Laurel and I moved down to Sydney. We were down there for a while, and when we came back up, we were often at Prospect Street. We spent time together, and then when the boys came along, I know that Michael would sometimes go around for a sleepover with Nathan and Ben. And just, all the things that have been said, Blair would just drop in. He was always, as you said, he was always busy, but he had some parts for Michael's car, because he had a Corolla, which was the right choice, wasn't it? I think I was partly inspired for us to get that car because Blair's advice, because he knows a lot about cars. So, yeah, drop in and drop some parts off or whatever. I think he got you a Mac, didn't he? And you swapped it for some mag wheels? Was it?
No, I swapped my dead Mac.
Oh, your dead Mac for some wheels. That wasn't a bad deal, was it? So, it was such a shock when we got the news, and I found out only a few hours after the event took place with Blair. And when I first got the news, I couldn't speak. I just couldn't speak. And I thank our Father in heaven for the blessed hope of the resurrection. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Blair on the resurrection morning. And I mean, everyone here is just such a tribute to the work of this man, just tireless. The only regret I have is that it wasn't always easy to get close to Blair. He kept his cards pretty close to his chest most of the time, and I had a longing to be closer to him. But you just have to understand that's just the way he was, and I'm just so grateful for just the things that he shared with me, and that I could learn a little bit from his giant intellect. It just blew me out of the water. So we're going to miss Blair terribly. And our prayers are with Carolyn and the boys. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Now we're just going to give anyone here that just has a short tribute that they'd like to make and share. Just raise your hand. We'd like to give you the opportunity.
Hi everyone, my name's Guy from Byron Bay. I haven't known Blair for very long, maybe about 10 years. I married my wife, Heather, from Montana, USA, 7 years ago. We went through a really rough patch a couple of years ago. And Blair heard about it, he made contact, and at the time we were living at Tweed Heads, and he would come down, and you know how busy he was, and he would come down every week and spend a few hours with me. And he would counsel me, he would counsel me, he would print out material for me to read. He'd say, I'll come back next week and we'll talk about this. He came in and week out. And as a result, I can happily say that my wife and I are happier than we've ever been. And Blair's partly, I can't think of words right now, responsible for that. It's all God, of course, but through Blair. And we've just had our little precious daughter born 3 days ago. And yeah, beautiful little girl. And I can't help but think that Blair's partly involved in that. And I would love for him to get to know this little girl. She grows up, but he won't have that opportunity. But I'm sure that there'll be lots of love together in heaven.
Thank you for sharing. I think we have a hand back here.
And Michelle Aldridge from Arctic Christian Association, which is an op-shop, which Blair had a very big role in setting up. And it's interesting to hear Adrian and John's comments, because to me Blair was a walking encyclopedia on Adventist history. I was brought up in an Adventist church where you heard a bit about William Miller and Joseph Bates, but that was the end of it. And you get to know Blair and find out the real Adventists and pioneers. It was just a totally new world in far as Adventism goes. But also Blair was interested in young people. He worked with us with our young people, and on a Friday night, Blair would be there, wouldn't he? Just to have the meetings, and we had a very good pastor who would work with us, so we worked with our young people. But also Blair had a lot more interest, as he loved sharing the gospel in our little Tambourine church. We were looking at ways, how can we further work the gospel? So we decided to do a cooperative body to work with it would be good. So Blair and Connie, who's like us here, and I sat together, we put a constitution together for Arctic Christian Association. And that's probably 20 years ago. That constitution has survived right through till today. It's the corporate body for the Karen Collum shop, and the work that shop done is brilliant, and even up till last week. Blair was coming down from Nunabar Valley after visiting Caroline and some work she was doing there. Blair found two young lady backpackers broken down on the road. So Blair stops, and for a start he realised why they were a little bit speaking to him. And what he realised, they hadn't had much Christian faith, but they looked and said, if there's a God, come and help us. So who arrives? Blair. And that's the whole new story. And Blair rings us and says, how can we help these ladies? And actually, I'll let Michelle tell the story. She's been.
Well, long story short, Arkwood Op Shop now owns a van, which we decided Caroline and Blair needed for the work they were doing at the shop also. But he had such a passion for young people, and one in particular, Mitch, You were always so close to his heart. Everyone, this is Mitch, and he's a young man that Blair really loved and has walked very closely with in the last 6 months. And through helping Mitch, he's met a lot of his friends and a lot of other young guys, and he's found so much out about what help is and is not available for these young fellas. And he found a couple of guys really close to getting jobs but no licence. You now need 100 hours to drive. So we ended up buying a van for the op shop. It's all sort of really because of Mitch. But we now have 2 young German girls off in it for 3 months so they can finish their holiday, because they were really ripped off by Australian mechanics, and their car was written off. So they're continuing their holiday. God's hand is over them in a mighty way, what's happening in their life. I'm now the bunny talking to them, and it's such a blessing. It is such a blessing. When they call, I think, oh, Blair, we need your mechanic skills. So, Mitch, you've had a big impact on his life. You've had an impact on the op shop, and his legacy, I think, is just going to keep on rolling on, and that'll be upheld by Caroline and his sons. So, he did an enormous work. Thank you.
And look, just one more bit I'd like to say, you saw the wedding. My first time I came for that wedding.
And Caroline, bless you, you returned the favour when we wed. Thank you.
Great, thanks for sharing, guys. I think we had another hand here.
Yesterday my daughter was baptised at Port Macquarie, and it was a very busy day, and I really wanted to come in. I was very, very tired, and this morning and early I thought, shall I go or shall I not? I'm ever so glad I made the decision to come and hear more about Blair. I've not seen him for 33 years. Why did I come? Well, I was at college with him when I first met him, and then, where's John? That flat that he moved into in Sydney was my flat. He moved in with me, and we, for some reason, it was a mystery to Blair and I. People used to think we looked alike, and you see, people call me Blair, and they call him Calvin, and we said, are they blind or are we? Anyway, we had a fantastic time, and I was interested to hear about his the things at college, and it brought back memories because. Blair, Jeff Parker, I think you know him, he's got something to do with the youth department now, and myself, we're actually all in those pranks together. But Blair had one thing, he had a cap that he always wore, and whether it was light or dark, if anyone saw anyone running away from the scene of a prank, they always saw the cap. It was a dead giveaway. Wouldn't take it off, so he wouldn't have been caught nearly as much. Anyway. And the time in Hornsby, it was about the time when just after Blair got his RX4, and then he had it peripheral ported. It never idled very well, and he was working at the sands. So at 6 o'clock every morning, he'd get up, out over the road, start the car up, and he'd be sitting there, brom, 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 for 15 or 20 minutes to make it warm so it didn't wear out on the way across the sand. This went well until we did get a knock at the door by the police. Someone had complained because every morning this thing went wrong, 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 wrong. So, bless him. Anyway,
that's good.
Yes, I'm privileged to have known Blair so long ago. I spent 20 years overseas and I came back 2 years ago, and I'm bitterly disappointed I didn't get to catch up with Blair again. I was at camp last year and didn't get to cross paths with him, unfortunately, and I'll have to wait a bit longer before we can have that catch up, but I do look forward to that very much, and thank you for making it an opportunity to be able to come and listen and share. Thank you.
Great. Yes, we do have that blessed hope. And we're just going to pause for a moment. We'll give a few more tributes in a few minutes, but we're just going to pause and have an item from Ruby Joe. Thanks, Ruby.
Hello everyone. So I'm Ruby Joe. Blair played a role in my life that will never be replaced. I first met Blair when I was 14 years old, and I'm now 16. Within the 2 years that I knew Blair, he gave me my first ever recording studio experience and helped make many of my musical dreams come true. This song that I'll be performing for you guys today is one of the first songs I ever performed for Blair. And I hope to one day believe in myself as much as Blair believed in me. This is I Have Nothing.
Share my life, take me for what I am, 'cause I'll never change all my colors for you. Take my love, I'll never ask for too much. Just know that you are in everything that you do. I don't need to look very much further. I don't have to go where you don't follow. I can hold you back again. This passion inside, I can run for myself. There's nowhere to hide, but don't make me close one door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. Must I imagine you there? Don't walk away from me, 'cause I have nothing, nothing, nothing. If I don't have you, you see through right to the heart of me. You break down my walls with the strength of your love. I never knew love like I know it with you. For me, memories survive when I can hold on to. I don't need to look very much further. I don't wanna have to go where you don't follow. I can hold you back again. This passion inside, I can run from myself, and there's nowhere to hide. But don't make me love to one more. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms, oh, if you're there. Must I imagine
section just for a few people to share some tributes. So I'm going to start out with John Andrew.
I've known Blair for over 30 years, and I was speechless listening to some of it. I knew of you, Adrian. He mentioned you at Peter Conley a lot. And Jim Arabita, these are three people that we talked about a lot in our conversations. We would have talked probably sometimes a few times a week. We would have met sometimes a few times a month. And over the years, I learned a lot about Blair, but none of it predates 1987, 86, 87 when I met Blair. And the reason why I met him was because there was a very cutting edge, shall we call it, magazine which dealt with current issues of what was happening in the world called the Morning Star. Anybody remembers the Morning Star? Yeah, quite a few hands. And I was a little bit of a rebel myself, interested in things that were not necessarily the Seventh-day Adventist kosher things in terms of how our mindset is, because I came from the University of Griffiths where I studied sociology, and thinking I knew a little bit more than some of those inside the church, I sort of thought that sounds and looks like a like-minded soul, and we became soulmates. We did. We shared some things which possibly, when you will hear it now, you might sort of be glad that he shared it with me. And all I learned in 1986, 87, here is a brilliant mind, is somebody who is really cutting edge in terms of his knowledge of what is happening in the world which matters to Seventh-day Adventists and our prophecy. Okay? There are people that I met like Bill Shea and others. I'm not going to sort of go here to impress with whom I met, because this is about Blair. But I met very few people who had the insight to connect the dots, which Blair did very, very nicely.
Yes.
But he was such a humble, such an unassuming man. And he was so generous with everything he had. That is his time, his family, his money. Everything Blair had was shared. And the best way, which I would sort of be able perhaps even to close with that, but I would still open a few windows, which I think I should, is that if there was a saint, he wasn't definitely declared a saint by the Roman Catholic Church, because they have no right to do so. But Revelation 14:12 says what? Here is what?
Patience.
Now, if anybody was ever patient, Blair was. Because when we met, I was 150 kilometers a second, and that increased. And he kept pace. And he would say, just hold on, John, hold on. You know, let us go. Send me an email. And this is how we sort of dealt with one another. He had patience. And because of that, our friendship continued. And only over the last 2 years, we really became close friends. That is when Blair started to confide in me. I knew about his dad. He said, my dad built just about half of the churches in Australia. And I didn't believe him initially, but now sort of looking at this, you know, there's quite a few churches that John Andrews, isn't it? John Andrew built. That is his dad's name, yeah? John Andrew. And my name is John too, so Andrick. So very similar, but I didn't build any of the churches. I was a minister, yes? And I did evangelistic meetings, and I remember clearly one, because Blair got me to catch on the New World Order and the New Age. In 1989, he came to one of my churches where I was a minister, and these people listened for 2 hours with their mouths agape. Is that possible? And this is when I really took interest in what is happening in this world around us, and how our gospel and understanding of the prophecy fits in, because that was for me actually, we live in the last days, what was happening in the New Age movement and the New World Order. And then one day I was asked to do evangelistic meetings in a place I didn't even know where it was, Blair Desert, because I came from New South Wales, right? And we went to a high school, and Maury I met also to Blair, and he was going to do some playing of trumpet and whatnot. And I got lost in the process because it was at night. Found the place, and you wouldn't believe it, in Blair Desert, a little place, it was packed. only because of what God did and the support I had from Blair. Nobody else supported me, right? The conference did. They sort of said, yes, go and do it. But that was it. Logistics, Blair and Maury and my family. 7 or 8 baptisms as a result in Baldesset. Blair has sown a lot of seeds that he himself was definitely unaware of. Only when we meet in heaven will all those people who directly or indirectly came through his work to know the Lord will shake his hand. So what did I learn about Blair this last 2 years? Firstly, that he dearly loved his 2 sons. I mean, he would come in and say, so look, this is what he did the last thing, I think, in his band, isn't it? Who was doing composing stuff. And I had to listen to all of those tracks. So what do you think? Well, okay, because we are musical, my wife and I. And so I knew about it. And also, he sort of said, my son, one of the best cameramen. And those of you who don't know, Blair did, last 2 years, finish a course as a cinematographer and a film producer. And we're working on 2 projects, and I will have to talk to you about this. He introduced me to a guy called J.A. Keel, a phenomenon in the ufology industry and literature in the world. And this guy, a non-Seventh-day Adventist, said that UFOs are apparitions and illusions which the devil and evil spirits are behind. The Trojan Horse, interesting project. And he was writing and gave me a terabyte of information, which I was supposed to go through. I was, at that time, working on a project of mine, you know, and I was trying to get him interested. So I said, yes, okay, I'll look. And he did. So 2 projects which remain unfinished. But some things that you don't know is that the reason why Blair possibly would not catch up with most of you is because, aside from being very busy, Blair had an inferiority complex. You would never think, I couldn't understand some of the things that we were doing, but he sort of said, John, I'm so insecure. Not in the trust of the Lord, not in his salvation, but about how is he coming across? How do people get me? And if he was here today, he would understand how did people get him, because most of you, I don't recognize your faces. So it must have come from all different places because of the impact this one man had on your life, right? This is why you're here today, yes? And I'll finish with this. We were supposed to meet the week that Blair passed away. We started filming a series which I've been working on for 2 years, and we did just the first few episodes. And we're supposed to continue. My wife and I still haven't come to terms that Blair is not any longer here with us. And I never thought Blair would die. I don't know why. I know only Jesus Christ doesn't die, but I didn't think Blair would die. Anybody thought Blair would die? No. I never did. I don't think you did. And it just came as a shock. I think it'll be a long while before it all sinks in. So I know your face. I met you. I've seen Peter Connolly because in his church, in his home, they used to have a church. I met him years ago, and he would rave about how beautifully talented this man is, what he does with Mac. And I disagree with you because he actually made probably quite a bit of something out of a dead Mac, because there was no dead Mac for Blair. No dead Mac for Blair.
That's why we gave it to him.
And so it would have been a good deal for him. So I'm looking forward really to catch up on that. Oh, and by the way, John Andrew Jr., you've given me such a beautiful panorama of what preceded 1986-87 when I met him. Because that gives you beautiful insight into a wonderful, fantastic man who was so humble, so patient, and so generous with everything he had. And I can't wait to reconnect and keep that appointment we missed on the week when he died, when Jesus came on the clouds of glory. Amen. And so that is the day I want to see all of us there. To shake Blair's hand and to praise God all together. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We will have time just for a couple more tributes. We want to encourage you to stick around. There's not going to be a rush after this service. and there's food, and there's going to be time for us to continue to share these stories with each other and encourage each other with the impact that Blair's made on your life. And so we'll just have time for a few more to share.
My name is Gisela Meal, and I'm speaking on behalf of the religious instructors at Canungra, Edith, Tony, Leslie, and Melanie as well. Blair taught religious instruction for more than 10 years. I don't know exactly for how long, both in Canungra and at Mount Tambourine. It was a very important part of his life, and he was very, very good at it. The kids adored him. He had a real rapport with them. He knew how to speak to them in their language. He rallied the troops. We all thought he was wonderful. We'd have smoko together afterwards, and we really enjoyed his company. We will miss him, and I know we cannot replace him. Thank you.
It's great to have Queensland where we still do religious instruction.
Hi, my name's Andrew Mailer. I had the pleasure of knowing Blair through my mum, who was one of the RE teachers, and he used to travel down the goat track, as they call it, every I think it was every Wednesday, and he was just as we all know, an amazing man. And Mum, her name was Amber Mailer, and some of you will probably know her. But I just kept on hearing his name. I had never met him at this stage, and Mum would just say, "Oh, Blair's doing this, and Blair's going to fix my computer, and Blair's taking me down, and if there's ever a problem, Mum would say, oh, Blair's coming over, he'll be able to do that, or he's fixing my car." And I lived down the mountain, and to have a man like Blair who was up there looking after my 86-year-old mother in the way that he did was quite amazing. And so I just thank God for him, and I thank his family for giving him the time and the space that he did to do the incredible work that he did. And thank you all.
Hi, my name is Brennan, and it was an absolute privilege for over a decade to be able to spend time with Blair and Caroline and the boys, watching them grow up from during their teens. You know, Blair was 57. Is that decades or centuries? I used to joke about Blair. He only looked like the last of the antediluvians. And that's because he pushed so many lives into one. You know, I wonder whether he built a time machine to do that out of all those cars and contraptions, you know. He was Doc. He had a giant intellect, yes. He also had a giant heart for Jesus. Amen. He was too humble to consider himself a father figure to the many people my age and in my generation that he mentored and coached and helped. He reserved that for his family, you know, for Nathan and Ben. And even then he never felt like he did a great job. But looking at you guys, you know, this is where Blair's legacy is. His real legacy is you two. To me, he was more like a favourite uncle, and to many people, I'm sure. You know, he was ever welcoming. He never let you down if you were in need. He was not intimidated by anyone, no matter what they were at. You know, like I presented my own type of troubles, and not many people were up to, you know, duking it out with me, but he would. He would invest in you very heavily when you needed him. And I know some people might think, you know, he was very hard to catch up with afterwards. But that was because when he knew that you were okay, he'd move on to the next person in need. Yes.
He was Blairy Poppins. He has a family that's so large from all the people that are here that, you know, maybe I was onto something about him being related to Noah. Or he temporarily leaves behind 2 massive libraries. He leaves behind a library of books, writings, audiovisual material, and he leaves the library behind in the hearts of those that he's touched here. People he's touched for Jesus.
Okay, we've still got a few hands up, so let's try to keep it moving, but thank you.
My name's Sandy Bailey, so I'm not standing up, I'm a bit nervous. Recently I lost my husband about 7 months ago, and Blair, this is one of the small little parts of Blair's life that go unnoticed, but I see it all the time on Mountain. And Blair is always there for people, whether they're of faith or not faith. My husband was a total intellect, and he and Blair would get locked in that office, and honestly, I believe that he was my husband's favourite man on the mountain, and he stood up and had some very beautiful and heartfelt words at his memorial. And after his passing and the difficulties I went through, he's not only helped me fix the TV, he still owes me a DVD player. But he's lent me a guitar so that I can get back into some music. I think I said he's fixed my car, he's helped me change all the office back over. And he also took away a lot of Cliff's legal books, which were overwhelming me. So Blair has been a part of my family since they first came to the mountain 20 years ago. My mother found him originally, and he has just been there and never dropped us. I know he had to level out his business for a while so that he wasn't seeing the many thousands of people he was seeing earlier. But I'm truly grateful that he stuck with us and stuck with me, and he's got me out of a lot of trouble over the last few years. And he's been so supportive when my husband was and I truly love that man, and I love his family, Caroline and the boys, for sharing him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Susanna Birch, and Blair was my uncle, so I have known him for quite a long time. My first memory of Blair was when he first returned from the USA, and I wasn't very old, I was very young, and I saw this man with his crazy black hair, and I went, wow, Mum, is that a wild man from Borneo? So my Uncle Blair was the black sheep of the family back then, and he said to me, Susanna, when I get married, you're going to be my flower girl. And all the adults went, Blair will never get married. But he did, and he kept his word, and I was a flower girl in his wedding to Carolyn. And then over a decade later, he was the MC at my wedding when I married my husband David. And he's always been the one who helps out. He answered the computer questions. He answered the esoteric questions on, you know, conspiracy theories and all these different theological questions. And he knew so much. And I'll really miss having him around.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I'd just like to say a few words on behalf of a friend, but before my name's Craig Jacobson. I lived in Currumbong, and I met this young man come to our door once. And, his name was Blair. Just knocked on the door and said, do you guys do printing? I said, yeah. Anyway, our relationship grew from there. But he would always be going between Currumbong and the sand. And he had this little white Mazda, which his brother told us about. Apparently he would do it in an hour. I don't know how he did it, but he would be up and down between Currumbong and the sand in an hour. Scary, scary life. And we always thought his guardian angels worked hard then, but he obviously never stopped. But really what I want to say today is we had a mutual friend, Mark Nofke. A lot of you might know him. But Blair was always there for Mark. As Brendan, you said, and I concur with you, and Mark does too, he was like a father to Mark. And Mark needed a father. And Blair was there to help him, to encourage him, and to support him. And Mark wanted to be here, but he couldn't. And he's going to miss him greatly, as we all. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lee Ngô. I came to know Blair in 1988, the year when a year after I arrived in Australia, and our friendship has expanded until now. Blair gave me a family, and he's always there. And he looked after me and made sure that he cared for me in many ways. And when Caroline told me that he passed away, I couldn't believe it. I just wanted to go to the mortuary and just slapped him and said, Blair, wake up. But I couldn't do that, so my only hope was to see him when Christ returned. And all that he said is very true. Blair cared for people. He extended himself 110%. And he made sure that he just want to make sure that you're really well cared for spiritually and physically and emotionally. And because of Blair, I have a beautiful family, and I can go up to the boys' friends and say I'm their adopted auntie, and I got a beautiful sister in Caroline and Sandy, and mom in Beth. And because of Blair and Caroline, I was able to experience a little bit of what it is to live on 2 acres on Tambury Mountain. And because of Blair, I met beautiful neighbors. And because of Blair, I met many beautiful friends through Caroline and Blair. And I always missed him.
Isn't it great to hear the lives that Blair has touched? It reminds me of Jesus' words that, we are to be the salt of the earth. And here Blair did all these things that few people were aware of. I think I had one more hand, and then we're going to move on.
I'm going to cry already. It's crazy. My name is Morizana, and I didn't realize I was such a girl.
It's all right, Mom.
Blair rescued my life, seriously. It's quite a while ago now, because I've known Blair for 35 years, in Caroline before Blair, actually. And I think I had something to do with him pushing Caroline to go down to Sydney and work with Blair. I went to Blair and Caroline's place. I was only going to stay for maybe 6 weeks, just to clear my head, because I was going through some problems. And I actually suffered with a headache 23 years, 24 hours a day. And Blair and Caroline, I ended up staying with Blair and Caroline for 16 years. And he was like I have 4 of my own brothers, but Blair was like my big brother, even though he's a couple of years younger than me. And I miss him for the last 2 weeks. He has an office in at my studio and factory, and I walk past there every day, expecting to say, "Hello, Dad. Come if you haven't met an angel, well, you have, if you've met Blair. Seriously, he just helped so many people. And the other day, you know how hard it is to play my trumpet in this sort of situation too. Yeah, my sister, she called me and she said, Blair was the nicest person in the planet she'd ever met. And I think so too. So it's because of my belief that I will see him again, and he'll be much better looking, don't you worry. But I might be too. And yeah, that sort of keeps me strong and keeps me going. And it's interesting how you can have tears and laughter at the same time, but Blair was difficult to love on his personality level, but when she got to know him as a person, you could not love him. Hate him. Thanks, Phil.
We've had some times together, and we've once considered brothers, and left a beautiful, indelible love signature on this planet. So we can really celebrate that. Am I being a girl too? So anyhow, it's really beautiful just to celebrate a man, his integrity, his transparency, and his imperfections, which we all have. So I just want to affirm the beautiful family that's left behind. That's a legacy of him. And that he was a dad for my sons when I wasn't around as well. Some great times together. So I'm really happy inside. It's just this emotional stuff. But, yeah.
I'm not sad for Blair. I'm just sad because I need him in my life. It's kind of weird, eh? But I think that God saw that Blair needed a rest because he was burning out, and I know you're only a fraction of the people that he's been involved with. And but we spent 7 years at South Bank every weekend, literally meeting thousands of people that we spoke for many hours to. Just this week I was driving around trying to find people in Brisbane to tell them what happened. Yeah, I love Caroline and Nathan and Benjamin. Thank you.
Thanks for helping him. Thanks for helping him be the man he was as well, you guys. And we're all here for you too, anytime. As well. Love you.
This man is important. Tony was a police officer in Melbourne, and he came up to spend his life with Blair. I'd like you to hear his story.
Thank you, Maury. And the reason I stood up is because Blair stood up in my baptism, right in the middle of it. Held up a book, Steps to Christ, and he said, "This is the gospel, brother." Blair was instrumental in me getting rebaptised, and my journey goes back to 1987, when I first gave my heart to the Lord, chasing my sister, who went AWOL, and I found her at his place. And she wasn't there, and he sat me down and he gave me a video. He said, "You like music?" He said, "Watch this." And it got me right in the heart. It was a presentation by Jim Arabitos on inroads to spiritualism. And as I sat there and I was sort of asking, "Well, what do you do for money?" He said, "Oh, the Lord provides." "What do you mean?" And John walked into the room. I said, "What do you do for money?" And John opened this room up. I think it was in Woy Woy, and there was a big printing press there. I said, "Well, we print material." I said, "Well, what do you mean you print material?" So that's when I got introduced to the Morning Star publications. And when I asked him where he got his money from, he said, "The Lord provides." I said, "What do you mean the Lord provides?" I never heard this concept of faith. And here am I sitting there in my biking leathers and hearing this concept of faith that just blew my mind. And he opens up a letter and there comes in a cheque, $5,000.
and they're printing material. He says, when the money stops, the printing stops. It's that easy, Tony. Did my head in, I went home and I started to feel a prick in my heart. I was 25, pretty wayward at that time, and I kept in contact with him. And every time I did a night shift, I spent 14 days, so I could do 6 days to come up and be with Blair. And then he looked at me one day, and the only reason I'm standing here is because he taught me how to have a spine. And that spine was to meet people where they were at. He said, you're coming with me down to the King's Cross. I said, what do you mean? I lock up people in that sort of area. And if we're coming there to play a guitar, we're going to save some souls. And he introduced me to Chris Lewin. I hope, is Chris here today?
Yeah.
Lovely to see you, brother. Tried to find you. I couldn't for 2 weeks. Great to see you. We'll catch up later. We went down to King's Cross, and he just gave me a completely new experience. And so it grew there. We had a pact, Caroline, before us guys would meet the chicks. We'd run it by each other, you see. Make sure it was all okay. On another note, Blair was very serious about his spirituality. And I remember on Sabbaths, we didn't know what to do, where to go. We went up to some rocks in Sydney, just sit there, Bible's open, and the big revelation, you know, we're meant to say we're saved by grace alone. You know, it's like a big light bulb in our life, and we're running backwards and forwards and digging through the scriptures, so it was an exciting time. So I stood up because I'm here because of Blair. I gave my heart to the Lord because of that young man through my rebellious times, and I just wanted people to know. The other reason I stood up is Blair had a wonderful heart. Just kept inspiring you. When your heart ran out of batteries, Blair would be there to fill it up. So, if you believe that Blair had a big heart, there's a big box out there. Say thank you to his life and his family, and keep the legacy going.
Blair was my other brother, and Caroline's my sister that I don't have in blood, but definitely in spirit. And Blair was actually a groomsman at our wedding. And he was just always there for us. It didn't matter if we were together or apart, or needed to talk, or needed space, or needed a bed to sleep in, or a car to drive. How many times Blair loaned me his car? And I want to say, what are we going to do without him? But God will fill that space, I know, for all of us. Just last week, Blair, Matt's gone down, can you help me? There was always something that Blair could do to help us. And if it was just a word or a smile or laugh at you or something, he was always there. And he was always there for us. And that's what I always remember as my big brother. I have 2 brothers, but I have 3 actually. And Blair's the 3rd one. And he was there for my kids. My daughter went road tripping a year or so ago, and she's driving up the coast, and she said, where do I go, Mum? I said, go up to Blair and Caroline and stay with them. And she did, and I'm so glad she did. And yeah, he was just there for everyone, for the kids, and yeah, that's enough. Thank you.
As we wrap up this section, you know, we've had Blair described as a saint, an angel, Blair Poppins, and I guess what I've been inspired is we all have, that, you know, Blair's no longer, he's resting now until the resurrection. But I hope that everyone here is inspired by the work he's doing, being the salt of the earth. And as we go back to our homes and places, that there'll be more Blairs out there, more people doing good work. And now we're going to turn it over to Caroline as she shares. Thanks.
That's right. Just see your system working. It's working. Thanks so much, Tim. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? How are we going? Is the sound guy down the back? Sliding, the little sliding things. Want me to move? Okay, let's see how we go. So I decided I wanted to speak today for a number of reasons, and that will become apparent as things progress. First of all, though, Chin, if you'd like to, my first slide. So decided to do my little PowerPoint thingy that I've given you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I came across that through the week. And I thought that kind of summed it up really nicely. Because he kind of ticked those 3 boxes, didn't he?
Yeah.
What's my next slide? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice. It's supposed to be up there. I'm just going to have to stand like this. Yeah, that. Thank you. Thank you for your love and your pain and your support and saying things that kind of, as soon as it's out of your mouth, you're like, oh, why did I say that? And like, how are you? Or is there anything I can do for you? And I take all of that as it's intended, as a reflection of the fact that this man touched your life, made an incredible impression, and you're gutted because he's gone and he's not supposed to be. Really, is he? That's probably one of the first photos of the 2 of us. And I always like this photo. It kind of, to me, it's kind of got a little bit of a magazine spread kind of look. I wanted to kind of superimpose Hugo Boss or Calvin Klein. It's kind of got that sultry kind of look about it. But yeah, it was interesting. I was about 24 there. I looked like I was 14, right? Yeah, that's one of those photos that I've always loved, the 2 of us. And the next one. That's the last photo. It's from about 3 weeks ago when we were up at Pellingbrook Falls with some friends. I was with a large group of people actually that were staying up at the log cabin. And we decided to go to Pellingbrook Falls, and he would kind of intimated he might come and join us, but he was very low-key and non-committal about it. And so then we all get up there, and we're looking over the railings, looking at the falls, and then suddenly he bursts onto the scene and goes, oh, all these tourists standing around taking up space, in a typical Blair sort of fashion. So there he was taking some photos as well, and as per normal, always trying to avoid a camera. I have countless photos of Blair like this. And a few nice photos where he actually submitted to the process. But if you really wanted to know what Blair's like, that probably sums it up the best. That's his Facebook profile photo. Well, you know, he had a view of life. He saw things in this world, and he was going to express those thoughts and those observations one way or another. He was not bombastic, he was not brash, he was kind of subtle, and he would just kind of do his thing in his own quiet way to get the message across, whatever that message might happen to be. So what have we got next, Jim? Okay, so he loved quotes, and this is one of his favourites. Yep. I'm sure you can read, but if you can't, if it's a little bit blurry for you, men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. Yeah. Winston Churchill. He found that to be true, but he was going to be that person that would find the truth. And he would go to great lengths to study things to a very deep level. So somewhere very early in his life, he started collecting books, rare books, unusual books, you know, for people coming out of a Christian perspective, to start collecting books on the occult and world politics and different world religions, UFO phenomena, psychology, sociology, all of those kind of broad topics. I was looking through looking through the computer, like we have a filing system on our computer that's quite comprehensive and systematic. So under the documents folder, you've got 130 different folders on different topics. And some of them are relative to people and some are relative to subjects. So you can go into any of those folders, and underneath them can also be myriads of folders where everything is being broken down and organised into subjects so he can track down information exactly when he needs that information. Not just for his own edification. He had a grasp of things. He had a big picture perspective of things. So he could see something, he could understand it, understand its depth, and do that whole bloodhound thing and detective work, but then also put it in a greater context and not just fixate on one or two little things, you know, to the exclusion of all else. And there was a purpose to that. Now, what's our next picture? We've got something next, Jim?
Video.
Oh, okay, yeah. This, yeah, so when you're ready to play that, Ching, that'd be cool. Yeah, he liked to share it, and this is the way that he's been able to do that in the last 7 years of his life. Let's see how, that first little slideshow that we ran earlier was kind of a little bit glitchy, sorry about that. It's probably obvious that it wasn't running properly. Okay, let's see how we go with this. So this is what he would do at South Bank, this type of thing. He was just set up books and tables, a little bit like what we've got out here in the foyer.
Yeah, so tell us about what you're doing here.
Well, we have 3 tables full of multimedia DVDs for people to find out for themselves what to do about themselves. So our objective is to get people happy, healthy, enjoy life, and aware of what's going on in the planet. So this table here is all health resources. This is all about the state of the planet, where the planet is at. And that table over there is our spiritual connection, which is dealing with our emotional state, our spiritual state, and how that affects our physical state. So we have a wide variety of stuff for people to come and get. We're here every week and have been for 2 or 3 years, and we have fun because we meet interesting people, and we help people, and we get to learn their experiences, and we can share stuff that we don't normally get to do in a different environment. It's real fun.
So,
is there any more on that one, or is it not? Okay, yeah, cool. We'll leave it at that for now then. He said a number of times that he liked to challenge people's thinking. He understood very well that everyone looks at life and views things from a certain perspective, and that's based on a lot of different factors. You know, your upbringing, the culture that you're raised in, the time period that, you know, your age bracket, all of these things, they have an interplay on our take or our view and our understanding of life. And he understood that, and he was respectful of that. But to him, what he saw and what he understood was also important. So he felt in himself a responsibility to not only pursue this grand quest for truth, but also to present it in a way that people's minds could grasp it and that it had relevance to them. And whether they picked it up and ran with it or not was kind of not something that he had any control over. But he knew that he could give people something that would help them fill in the pieces in their life journey. And that was the paramount thing for him. Our relationship has never really fit any kind of normal sort of mould in any way, shape or form. And in this day and age, it really isn't such a thing as normal. But hey, if you wanted to pick normal, well, you wouldn't pick the Andrews family. Just saying. I mean, not only you've got a man with such incredible intellectual skill and vision and purpose, who is basically allergic to money. You know it, right? If you know him in any way, shape or form, you just know it's like, oh, no, you don't have to worry about that. with a wife and 2 children, and guess what? We've got a ring-in. We've got like Maury living with us for ages, and then eventually when Maury's and our paths crossed, then we ended up living with Lenore down the back, and now I have the privilege of living back with my mother. We don't have diddly squat, okay, just saying, just put it out there, you all know it, so I'm just saying it like it is, but you know, like right through our lives, we've kind of gone, God will supply, and He has. You know, I suppose that may seem irresponsible to some people. It's actually, I don't know, you think about a person's life and what a person's calling is in life, what it is that they were made to do. Right from a very early point in our relationship, I had that sense that he had a specific calling over his life. And I knew it wasn't going to tick the normal boxes, but I was okay with that. I just kind of had to strap on my seatbelt and buckle in and hold on for a wild ride, which with God's help, I've been able to do. So, because there is this wide group of people here that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, I want to explain something to you in a little bit of detail, and this is out of respect. People, you know, as I said earlier, people will come to us and say, and they will express their grief and their thoughts and their perspectives on my future and what this means for me. And so what I want to explain to you is one of the things that was actually really important to Blair and to me, and that is what we understand the Bible to teach about when a person dies. Now, Blair was a great believer in this book being extremely relevant to people today. This is, you can tell, it's kind of got that boring, plain look about it. Yep, it's a Bible. So there's this interesting concept that you would let the Bible define what it means when it's referring to a subject and not superimpose common beliefs, traditionally inherited ideas, and superimpose it over scripture. Sounds great in theory, really hard to do. With God's help, you kind of can do it. So, okay. Case in point. So let's have some verses. This is from Ecclesiastes 9, 5 and 6. The living know that they will die, but the dead do not know anything. Nor do they have any more a reward, for their memory is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, their envy is now perished. Nor do they any longer have a part forever in all that is done under the sun. It was our understanding and our belief that from God's word that when a person dies, they go to sleep. And there's no awareness of anything from that point on. The next one, thanks, Jude. This is a bit later in the same chapter. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might, for there's no work, nor plan, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave where you go. It's our understanding that a person, once they have passed away, is basically unconscious. What have I got? I think there's another Bible verse. Oh yeah, this is from Psalms 146. His breath goes forth. He returns to the earth, and that very day his thoughts perish. This is a very special and dear teaching to me at this point in my life. That I don't, and again, being respectful of where everyone else is at and where you've come from and what you might believe. I'm just saying that from my perspective, this is what I understand to be the case. And I find this comforting for me, that I'm not sitting here imagining Blair looking down upon me and going, "You'll be all right, Caroline." You know, that he's not sitting on a cloud trying to work out how to play Pink Floyd on a harp. Or anything like that. Now we've got another verse here. you may or not be aware of that. This is kind of one of those pivotal little statements in the Word of God, that God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believed in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Is that God would be so sensitive to us, so much long to rescue us, that he would give something so dear so that we might live. So this is kind of moves into the second thing that I wanted to highlight, is that the Bible talks about these two things, life versus death. It talks about eternal life versus death. And we understand that. Actually, there's another verse. I'll get you to throw it for me, Jing. Okay, this is going to take a little back step here. Now, this is Jesus himself. Jesus said, this particular instance, for those that are not familiar with the story in John chapter 11, a very close friend of Jesus died, and he knew that was going to happen. And he said to the disciples, the 12 men that were traveling with him, he said, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples said, well, Lord, if he's sleeping, that's a good thing. It means he's going to get well. Jesus spoke of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of him taking rest in sleep. Jesus understood, and it was very commonly held understanding in that day and age that a person died when they went to sleep. That's a consistent thought throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, as I see it. Okay, next verse for me, please, Jing. Okay, so this is what the Bible proposes for us as our future, for those after they have fallen asleep. Behold, I speak a mystery, that we will not all fall asleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the glance of an eye, at the last trumpet. The trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall all be changed. But this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. That is the thing that gives me great peace.
Amen.
That's why I can stand here and not be a teary mess in the front row. Amen. Because I believe that Jesus has just finally, he's getting a decent rest.
Amen. Amen, Caroline.
Yeah. And he will not be sitting in heaven watching me cry or struggle or wistfully watching my boys as their lives progress, as they marry and have children and do all of those things that happen in life. He's at rest from all of that now. He has given of him, he's poured himself out to so many of you. And there were times I was frustrated, but you know, he would come home and he would share some of the stories of your lives, some of the things that were happening, the battles that people were facing. And by extension, if he cared, then I cared too. And I was glad that he was able to go and make an impact in people's lives. It's the truth of the Word of God that sets people free. And I'm so thankful that I have the assurance that Jesus said, behold, I'm with you always, even to the end of the world. I will miss my husband, as you will miss him too. He's run his race, and he's given of himself. And he often said to me that he just saw himself as someone sowing seeds. I felt, by extension, a responsibility to stand here before you as some of the people that he had poured himself into. And just to let you know why he did that, it's because there was a God who had touched his heart and transformed him. So he wasn't the selfish, self-centered person that he was back in the early 80s, doing his own thing and hurting people along the way. He was transformed into someone who could take this incredible combination of intellect and practicality combined together, and he just did stuff. Just did stuff. Pretty much. And he would be running around like a hairy goat half the time. Hurrying us along. I was thinking today as we got in the car, I was like, this is way more relaxed. If Blair was here, he would have been on to us, like, we're running late, quick, we're supposed to have left 15 minutes ago. The point of his life was that he believed that there was a God. He believed that God was real, that God wants to impact us personally. He wants to give you answers to the things that you are struggling with in life. He wants to help you to fulfill and reach your potential to do the best you can in life. Because now that Blair's gone, it's going to take at least 20 people to take his place. What have we got next? There he is. Yes, that was one of the things that he did on many occasions, where he got up and he spoke and he had that opportunity to share from that wealth of knowledge and information. What else have we got there? Yeah, this was it. This was the driving force. This guy who gave everything, who gave way more than Blair, and who is alive forevermore. And all you've got to do is invite him into your life. If you can muster the courage to do that, it will always be worth it.
Amen.
It will always be worth it.
Amen.
This was on a card that my husband had in his wallet for many, many years until it finally disintegrated. But it came to my mind and I thought that would be an appropriate way for me to finish what I had to say today. Blair was a writer, a researcher, an activist, a teacher, a musician, a videographer, a photographer, a speaker, a computer technician, a mechanic, a counsellor, a minister, a father, a husband, and he was a child of God. And he would be so incredibly happy if one day he would see you and see that you too were also a son and a daughter of God. One thing that I have been a little bit remiss, the tables that are set up outside has some books and literature set up a little bit like how Blair would have set them up in South Bank. And on that little flyer, the memorial sheet, it had on the back Blair's recommended resources. So those books and things are sitting out there. This book in particular, I went and I purchased some copies of this. He said that my husband has a library of like over 1,500 books, and that's not counting the things that he has read online. But he said this is probably one of the best books he'd ever written as far as understanding the impact of the Bible and as far as how it has shaped the world as we know it. So, and I know he bought extra copies at sometimes, and he gave them away to people and said, you need to read this. So I'm like, okay, so there's some copies out there, you can leave some money for it, you can take it, I don't care, but he would really love it to get that book out into circulation. There's a book there that's about the life of Jesus. It's a great read. There's a book there that covers aspects like prophecy and what the Bible has to say about not only the last 2,000 years of world history, but also what's coming up. There is, there's some of those thoughts and concepts I shared with you about the Bible teaches about when a person dies. There's a little yellow tract out there if you wanted to know more Bible verses. That's fine. I mean, I've made those resources available for you if you would like them, and that's entirely up to you. All I can do is invite the musicians, because we're going to sing a last song. Amazing Grace.
Amen.
I thank God for His grace over my husband's life. 57 years, a bit too short, but oh my goodness, how action-packed were those years. I leave them in your care as well, Lord. And I pray that you would bless and guide each person here. And we are looking forward to seeing him again. More importantly, Lord, I'm looking forward to seeing you. We can bow at your feet and thank you for what you can do through us, such weak, frail people that we are. And you can take a person and do such incredible things. I believe that you have incredible things to do in our lives while we have our time and breath left in our bodies. And I would like to invite anyone here that might want to experience that, to give the Lord of the universe permission to enter your life and let him be the Lord of your life as well, and see the incredible things that God can do in you too. I ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone. As you can well imagine, there will be lunches. We can all stand around, and I now give myself permission to shed some tears.